if you look at that test, it's not like they were not put under pressure or they weren't in trouble, right? They had lots of situations where they were in trouble, but each and every time somebody pulls them out. I mean, I've covered a lot of losses, so.
Oh yeah, and you're close to the action. I'm in Australia, so. Welcome to Sri Lankan Cricket Podcast. In this episode, we bring the spotlight to New Zealand Women's Tour of Sri Lanka and Women's Ashes, two events that deserve recognition amidst the World Cup qualifying buzz and the Men's Ashes. Last few weeks, we have been focusing a lot about Sri Lanka's qualifying campaign for the World Cup, and we overlooked the New Zealand Women's Tour of Sri Lanka in our recent discussions. So now Sri Lanka have already won the first one-day international played in goal. Captain Chamari scored her 7th one-day international 100, and Vishmi Gunaratne scored a 50 to bring Sri Lanka home to a convincing win. So we don't get a wide coverage for women's cricket in Sri Lanka, and everything we want to know and to get more details about ins and outs of women's cricket, we turn to this person, and she somehow find time to come on the podcast and have a chat with us. So without further ado, it is with great pleasure that we welcome back Estelle Vasudevan to our podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here once again, Estelle.
Thanks so much for having me, Jackie. I mean, it's always good to be on Sri Lanka Cricket Podcast because, I mean, I've come on a couple of times. Always a good chat with you guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, you've joined us about 3 times now, so we turn to you to get information about Sri Lanka women's cricket, and you're there for us every time we turn to you. So I think let's just get right into it. Girls are in goal, and I'm assuming you are there too, but maybe not. Unlike the men's team, who has a habit of losing the first game of every series, Sri Lanka women's team had a convincing win in the first one-day international. Your thoughts on that win, Estelle?
Yeah, it was completely unexpected. I don't know if there was anybody really expecting calling that result just going into that series, just because Sri Lanka have not had a great record against New Zealand. I'm sure you guys would have heard, like, we've never beaten them in the past. 10 ODIs, 11 T20s, haven't beaten them.
Oh, wow.
Although the last ODI we played against them was back in 2017, so a long, long time ago.
Oh, wow.
But just even in the T20 arena, I think in the Commonwealth Games, it was a massive loss. Similarly, we have really struggled against them. But it was a really superb effort, I felt. All the headlines are obviously going to be about the batting, but I felt like the bowlers also did a pretty good job to keep New Zealand under 180, 200, because considering, the pitch, I think maybe New Zealand kind of read too much into the fact that maybe it'll spin a lot in the second innings or whatever. But once it rained, things settled down. So I think the bowlers did really well to keep them down to that total. And then, of course, it was just superb batting from Chamari.
Oh, yeah. She keeps delivering. I mean, that's her 7th one-day international 100, and no one else has scored 100 for Sri Lanka. So that speaks volumes about her ability and her dominance in women's cricket in Sri Lanka. And it's a treat to see her bat and those cover drives. I mean, you don't want to get in her way because she hits the ball so hard. And it was a great partnership. We lost only 1 wicket to get the 172. So rarely we see a dominating performance like that. So it's good to see that. And I still can't believe she doesn't have IPL contract, a women's IPL contract. So that's a mystery to me.
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, this is a kind of a side note. Maybe we can come on another episode to talk about it. There is another centurion for Sri Lanka, but surprise in Test cricket. So Sri Lanka have played 1 Test match back in 1998, and Chamari Seneviratne got 100 there. So that's the only 100 from someone other than Athapattu. In limited overs cricket, it's only her. She has 7 in ODIs and 1 in T20 cricket. And I think a key point is also she has the 700 she's made are against 6 different oppositions. So it's not that she's, caught onto one team and really gone after them. But anyway, that's an aside. Yeah, it was a dominant performance. I forgot to mention previously, in all 10 ODIs that Sri Lanka had played New Zealand, the margins have been so big. Like, I think 4 games, Sri Lanka have lost by either 10 wickets or
Oh,
more than
wow.
100 runs. I think the closest was like 70 odd runs or 7 wickets.
Right.
So, Sri Lanka have not even pushed New Zealand in the past. So I think a lot of people don't realize what a big, like, huge achievement this is, because they, like you said, it was a dominant performance, but they won quite comfortably in the end.
Yeah, I think the tables have turned. Like New Zealand must have taken it by surprise. They had some injuries coming into Sri Lanka. Don't know whether that affected, but they have a very strong team. They're one of the top 4
Yep.
teams in women's cricket. So 1-0 up. All 3 games played at goal, I think. And
Yep.
so what to expect for the rest of the series? I'm sure we have to seal it in the next game.
Yeah, it's funny because before the series started, like everyone who you spoke to about it would have been like, it's going to be 3-0, right? New Zealand's going to win 3-0.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's rain and there's a washout. But suddenly now, after that first game, everyone's like, Sri Lanka's going to get a series win, right? Like, it's one game that they need to win now. It's going to be tricky, I think. I mean, realistically, if you look at it, you were right. New Zealand, it's a brilliant team. I don't think they've been that great over the last couple of years. Maybe kind of on the way down now, with teams like South Africa coming up. But still, that team is full of quality players. You've got Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, Amelia Kerr, 3 of the top players in the world. Leah Tahu, one of the fastest bowlers. So they've got plenty of quality in that side, and I don't think they will be kind of deterred too much. If anything, they're probably more motivated to come back, because they know it's Atapattu's wicket, right? In the end, that's
Yeah.
going to make a difference. Even in that chase, even with 50 to go or 30 to go, you always felt like if Atapattu was dismissed, they could put a little bit of pressure and turn things around. So that's how important she is to the Sri Lankan side, because you never know what could happen, because there have been so many kind of collapses in the past, and so many, I mean, non-starts, in the sense that, when she's dismissed early, you have a lot of low scoring games for Sri Lanka. So they'll know that. They did mention that, they've come in with some plans. Obviously, it didn't work for them uh, in the first game. They were sloppy in the field as well. So that's another thing they'll want to fix. Overall, it felt like, to me, the loss was more a lot to do with the fact that they weren't familiar with the conditions at all, and they didn't read it very well. And also, Atapattu played so smart. Like, I mean, just an example, like when they were bowling the leg spinner, they were trying to get Atapattu to hit through mid wicket against the wind, and it was quite windy that day. But
Right.
Atapattu kept playing the ball straight.
Right.
So it was a lot of smart cricket on her part. She protected Vishmi, and because she scored so fast, Vishmi was also able to settle down and kind of stay there so that they could put that big partnership. So, lots to look forward to tomorrow. I'm hoping there'll be a full game. As far as I know, it's raining in Gaul at the moment. I'm not in Gaul. As
Oh,
far as I know, it is raining. So hopefully tomorrow we don't have any interruptions.
yeah. That's why I keep calling Chamari Sanat Jayasuriya of women's cricket in Sri Lanka, because we all know when Sanat scores, there's a good chance we're going to win the match. So I think it's
Yep.
the same when it comes to Chamari in women's cricket in Sri Lanka. Just about the rain situation, Estelle, do you think we are more suited to play T20 cricket because we are playing a shorter game? Does that give us an advantage, or are we better off playing the 50 overs?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, I think, because, like I mentioned, we've played New Zealand in T20 cricket in the recent past, and we've struggled, right?
Right.
But you also do feel like the shorter the game, the closer we can be to them, because if that game was dragged to 50 overs, maybe they would have got a total in excess of 250, and chasing that would have been tough.
Yeah.
Because you have to go at a high run rate for so long. And then again, it's the dismissal of Atapattu that really, it's her wicket that really counts there, right? So that's an interesting question. I'm really not sure. I felt like that day, because it was shorter, and it wasn't very short. Like if it was a 20-over game, I think New Zealand would have attacked much more. They didn't attack early in their innings, maybe because they thought they had the 29 overs. I felt like they would have attacked a lot more if it was a 20-over game. So maybe it being like between the two formats, so just 29 and then 28 overs ultimately, that helps Sri Lanka.
Yeah. No, hopefully that big win will, give our girls more confidence and go on and win the game tomorrow. So she'll finish it off tomorrow. Then what's your series prediction? I'm backing Sri Lanka to win 2-1.
It's very hard for me to give you a prediction. I would say it's still in New Zealand's favor. Because it's just Atapattu who stands between them and a win. And they missed a lot. They missed opportunities that day. There was a stumping, there was a run out, a couple of catches late in the game, which probably wouldn't have made a difference. But definitely, stumping and run out could have turned things around, because you never know, right? With pressure on, what's gonna happen. So I'm still sorry, Sri Lankan fans, but like I still think New Zealand will go 2-1.
2-1. Oh, okay, we'll see. Then we move on to T20 series in Colombo. All the games will be played in Colombo. So another 3-match series. Hopefully, if we win one day, yes, we might be able to push New Zealand and create history by beating them in the T20 series as well. Maybe we can catch up again and have a chat about the T20s.
Yep.
But I don't think we'll have big changes in the squads when it comes to T20s. It'll be the same players, isn't it?
Yeah, I think more or less it will be the same. We did see against Bangladesh as well. Although the squads were slightly different, the playing 11 was pretty much the same. So it'll probably be the same. Maybe they'll bring in one or two changes, but it more or less the kind of the foundation of the team will be the same. You'll have your Karana Veeras, Soshadhi Ranasinghe, Chamari Atapattu, Vishmi Gunaratne, Harshita, all of them will play, I think. Maybe one or two changes.
No, it's a good thing to have 7, maybe 8 players playing regularly, and less changes you make in the team helps you to have that core group of players to play together for a long time. That especially we have a lot of young players in the squad, so that helps. But backing for Sri Lanka to win, unlike you.
I would love to back them to win, but I've covered a lot of losses, so.
Oh yeah, and you're close to the action. I'm in Australia, so it's easy for me to watch on TV or check things from Cricket Info and make decisions. But shall we move on to women's Ashes? They played one Test match. They only play one Test match in the women's Ashes, and I thought the game was heading for a draw, or maybe Australia to lose, but Ashley Gardner, she took 8 wickets in the second innings and 12 wickets in the game. What a match winner. So Australia, they've been dominating women's cricket for a long time, and they keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look, what's great about that team, and I think it's something that people don't realize a lot when it comes to these big series, is that there was a lot of chat before that they have weaknesses. They're not a team that is invincible. They can be beaten. The thing is, if you look at that test, it's not like they were not put under pressure or they weren't in trouble, right? They had lots of situations where they were in trouble, but each and every time somebody pulls them out. I've covered a lot of losses, so.
Oh yeah, and you're close to the action. I'm in Australia, so
It's not like, if I compare it to Sri Lanka, it's not one person. who's pulling them out, or 2 or 3 people. It's different players. So in that first innings, when the batting was looking a bit shaky, suddenly number 8, Annabelle Sutherland comes up with 100.
I
I don't
know.
think she should be at number 8. She's
Yeah.
far better than that. But I mean, suddenly she comes up with 100. Then, like you mentioned, Ashley Gardner, not, you wouldn't put her in the same class as spinner as like a Sophie Eccleston, right?
Yeah.
And she's not their kind of frontline spinner. It's Alana King,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
she produced the goods for them. So if it's incredible. That's the depth I think they have. And I think what people don't talk about a lot is that great teams and dominant teams, it's not the playing 11 per se that makes them dominant. Most countries have a good playing 11.
Mm,
It's the bench and the reserves that really make them great. They
absolutely.
can pull someone out of the 15 who's going to produce a match winning innings or match winning spell. That depth is what makes them such a great team and what has helped them dominate for so long. We've seen teams like India, England competing, and I think in years to come India is really going to push them and maybe even surpass them. But that's where they've been able to kind of still, even when they've been down and they've
Mm.
been in trouble, find a way because they've got so much of depth in that team.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Annabelle, she bats number 8, and Perry missed out on 100.
100.
But uh, Annabelle is like Perry's understudy, right? And she's I don't know. I don't think she's even 20 years old. I'm not sure how old she is, but when Perry hang her boots, Annabelle will take over for the next 10 years. So
Yeah.
that bench strength is remarkable, and they got some quick bowlers as well. I don't see many bounces bowled in women's cricket, and Australia has a couple of bowlers who can bowl quick bounces, and so it's remarkable the bench strength, and I mean the period they've dominated. I mean that's been for the last 10 years, and most of the senior group has been playing together. So they just take the game to the next half an hour, and something happens. They end up being
And
winning.
like something like people weren't talking about either is that they're missing Rachel Haynes, one of
Yeah,
their all-time best players, and Meg Lanning, right?
yeah,
So they're without two of their great players. Haynes, of course, retired, but you know that's a lot of quality that you need to find from somewhere. But somehow they're able to fill in those gaps.
yeah. That Chamani Senviratne's 100. I mean, because Annabelle scored her 100 at number 8. She better number 8, isn't it?
I think
I
so.
was just looking it up on the internet. I mean, she better
She got
number
a
8
five
in
wicket
the
haul in that match as well. So, I mean, it would have been a dream test match.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, didn't play another one after that. So, just imagine you come in number 8, you hit 100, then you get the ball in your hand and get a 5 wicket haul.
Yeah,
Just
and win
stuff
the
you dream
match.
about, no?
And that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's not bad, right? 100% win record.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's not good for the game. I mean, I'm sure Chamari
yeah.
must be, I would like to bat twice in a match. um, so we'll keep an eye on the Ashes because there's going to be 3 one-dayers and 3 T20s. So lot of cricket to be played. Have you been watching men's qualifying tournament? They've been winning all the games, big wins. But Bora and I, we had a chat a few days ago. I mean, this is not the real thing. These are just warm ups, and we should be hitting hundreds, taking 5 wicket hauls, and building up confidence rather than just scraping through. So, any thoughts on qualifying tournament? We are in the second leg of the tournament now. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been covering that one as well when it's not coinciding with the women's one. And you're right. I think it's not the real thing in the sense it's not the big tournament, right? But if you look at the beginning, they did exactly what you were talking about. They were hitting the hundreds and getting the fifers and dominating, which is what they should be doing in a tournament like this. But I kind of feel for them because it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you score hundreds, people talk, it's small teams, they're playing associate countries. Of course, they're getting hundreds. If they get dismissed, they're
Yeah.
still gonna, cop some criticism. So, I mean, it goes either way. I think the first three games were superb. Scotland was, I think, more than a few of us were nervous, right? That halfway
Yeah,
stage,
yeah.
245 on the board. Um, but in the end, I think that bowling attack was always going to be our biggest asset, right? It has been, I think, for the last 3 years, just the variety that is offered. Obviously, Vanindu, we know he's a quality bowler, and I think he's also in the heads of opposition. But if you look at the others, I've been really impressed with the fast bowlers, Kumara and Rajitha. Kumara, I'm really glad that he's staying fit because I feel like he's one of the biggest assets Sri Lanka cricket can have. And he's got a lot of criticism, he doesn't really think when he's bowling. But I think if you look at his performances since that 2021 World Cup where David Miller took 16 off his over and Sri Lanka were knocked out of the tournament, he's been consistently good in ODI and T20 cricket. He's had a couple of off days, but he's been consistently good. And in Australia during the World Cup, we saw really what he can do. That spell against Glenn Maxwell, and I can't remember who the other batter was. Just that's kind of what he can do, right? So I've been really happy to see him kind of growing into that role. Chamira, I feel like might come in for the big games, maybe against Zimbabwe and West Indies. Um, but if we do lose him to injury again, I think it's going to be massive for the World Cup because he just brings so much more into that bowling attack.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I lose sleep over thinking about Chamir. Like you're right. Like he's the spearhead of the attack. I
Yeah.
mean, if he's there, like Lahir Kumar, he doesn't have to bowl that last over or the penultimate over because no one's there. He had to bowl that over. He's the inexperienced one. So you need someone like Chamira alongside Lahir Kumara to get the best out of him. So hopefully, I'm hoping they're resting him. It's not a major thing. So
Yeah.
we need him in India. Other than that, I would like to see Kusal Mendis scoring a couple of hundreds
Yeah.
in the second leg of the tournament. You mentioned about criticism. He goes all out when he opened the batting in the T20s. I don't know. He goes into a bit of a shell playing in the 50 overs game. He tend to take too many balls. He consumed too many balls at the start of his innings. So that's something he has to work on. And we got. I don't think they'll make big changes in the batting order. So he'll be
Yeah.
playing games. So this is a good opportunity for him to get some runs. Get the confidence back. And we got some points in the table, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's
Luckily.
so then not that we can relax, but that's a bit of a relief. Then you're not
Yeah.
worried about the net run rate and all that. So hopefully boys will come on top and get to India. Then we'll worry about the
Yeah.
team take it to India.
We can. Yeah. One step at a time, right?
Yeah. I think that's about the time we have today. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Estelle. We'll keep coming back to you to get more news about Sri Lanka women's cricket because it's very hard to find information because it gets very little coverage. Maybe you're the only person who go to the games and knows about the players, and so people ask when you're gonna get Estelle back and talk about Sri Lanka women's cricket. We get
Oh,
messages.
okay.
So yeah. So you're very popular among our listeners. So thank you again
That's
for
good to know.
thanks again for joining us. And I'm gonna stick to my 2-1 call for Sri Lanka
Okay.
to win the
Okay.
series.
I
So
hope you're right. I hope you're right.
till we meet again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Chucky. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you soon.